Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Vorosh with Deja Vu, back for Game 4 of Zero vs. Com, and Com is now up 2-1. Zero needs to win the next two games to win this series, and it's definitely going to be an uphill battle for him. This game is going to be played on Dante's Peaks, which, as we learned in Jaedong versus Grape, is just a really good map for Zerg. So that's going to put both of the players at an outstanding advantage.
I tend to agree. This map is going to be Zerg favored, and we should see a Zerg win. I am not going to disagree with that at all. We do have Calm in the bottom left, the teal Zerg, and then Zero in top left, the orange Zerg. And once again, just as, 2 games ago, Calm's going to get the advantage again with the scouting advantage, his Overlord going in the proper position, and Zero's unfortunately not. So we're going to have to see what happens with that advantage and what the builds will be. So far, we've seen, 12 pools and 12 hatches so far. Nothing too early rush-based so far, and I'm just getting that feeling that maybe one of them's going to 9 pool or over pool and get really aggressive in this game, just because we haven't seen it yet. And it seems unlikely that we would go 4 games in a ZVZ without seeing someone go for an early win.
I actually kind of disagree. I think the metagame in Korea in Pro Zerg vs. Zerg is pretty much all 12 hatches and 12 pools. 9 pools and over pools are getting rarer and rarer these days, which it makes me question why people still go 12 pool. But it's like a completely different metagame than you encounter playing on iCup, like at the D and C ranks, where everyone goes 9 pool speed. It looks like both players already getting 12 drones, so we're going to see again either 12 pools or 12 hatches. And what I'm hoping in this game, because I definitely want to see a game 5, I'm hoping Zero goes for the 12 pool, which of course hard counters the 12 hatch. No, Com's going for the 12 pool. So yeah, both players going for the 12 pool. So just like last game, we're going to have mirrored positions and mirror builds. So we'll see. It'll just come down to micro and what units you decide to make and when you decide to press attacks, which is exactly the Zerg versus Zerg that is the hardest to play but the funnest to watch. Funnest is a word, by the way.
It absolutely is a word. As long as someone understands what you're saying, it's a word and it totally counts. That's my philosophy, unless you're writing like a paper. If you're writing a dissertation or something, don't make up words. Don't even play that game with your professor. It never works. But other than that, as long as someone knows what you're saying, that's what matters. And yeah, it looks like it is going to be a macro game as per usual. I was wrong. I was really hoping that we would get an early fight here, but not gonna happen. And Zero with his 12 pool versus 12 pool. I saw him beat Hero in this matchup. It was on Monte Cristo, but it still counts. 12 pool versus 12 pool. Recently, him getting a televised victory, which is always good. The cameras seem to be focusing very much on Calm for some reason. Maybe they're talking about him possibly getting over that MSL winner's curse where they just tend to do very, very poorly. Everyone from Luxury and I don't know who else. The list goes on and on. Bisu did well afterwards, but like Luxury and 4GG who just did terrible. And maybe they're thinking Calm's back. We've got Hydra coming back. Maybe finally the MSL winner's curse is over, and they're gonna keep up to play. Because I would love to see some of these champions really get going. And we are getting a little bit of a Zergling engagement here. Zero coming down onto Calm Zergling, but probably not going to have too much more than just this right here. I don't think Calm's gonna or Zero's gonna be able to get enough of a Zergling advantage to do anything, and Calm's not gonna let Zero in with a lesser number. So it's just gonna be a draw, and we're just gonna keep macroing up with our Zergling counts.
I wasn't even aware that there was an MSL winner's curse, because I know, like, I'm thinking of all the players who have won MSLs. The only ones who haven't really had much success after that are Mind, 4GG, Calm, and
Luxury.
And Luxury. But like, oh, there's
Mole Trap!
Is that Mole Trap and Wolf? Oh my God, I love seeing people I know in Korea at the MSL. That's the most fun thing ever. But when I think of like who wins MSLs, Nada, Savior, and Bisu, and Jaedong, and Flash, they've certainly had a lot of success. And then what, like Uv got 3, right? And then like Boxer.
I think it's a more recent thing over the last 6 or 7 MSLs. How it's been like 4 or 5 of them have just slumped afterwards.
Oh, okay, I got you. Cause what is there's been like what 24 MSLs or something, or there's been a lot of MSLs because there's always 3 or 4 a year for a long time now, and if we can only come up with 4 players who haven't been good after that, that's not really a trend.
I'm still calling it a trend. And you had a stretch there where 3 out of 4 of them, out of the 4 guys that we mentioned, all 4 of them occurred in like 5 MSLs. I think that's how it actually occurred. Is just that swarm of guys slumping hardcore right after this, that happened. But okay, looks like we actually have something to cast right now because Zero's coming here with a ton of Zerglings, and he actually is going to look to pick off that hatchery. And it looks like Calm going to come in here maybe for a big pincer tech on around both sides. And now Zero kind of going back and forth. This battle is going back and forth. Who's actually going to get a concave? Looks like Calm's was maybe a tiny bit better there in that fight, and actually backs up trying to get a better concave. But it looks pretty linear to me. And who's going to come out ahead? This still looks very, very close. And Calm is actually going to come out ahead just barely, just a couple of Zerglings more left over, and still that battle is still going to be basically a draw with a slight victory to Zero because he's stopping gas mining time, and every second that you're not mining is a detriment to your game. So I would say in that battle, military draw, but economically I would say a slight advantage towards Zero. Calm's Mutals out now, and they are starting to pick a little bit at the Mutalist, or at the Zerglings of Zero, but nothing too significant, and Zero should have Mutalist up pretty shortly as well in order to counter. So a nice little engagement right there, very, 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 very close to being decisive one in either direction, really.
Yeah, I don't know if either the Observer or Zero is playing really strangely because we have not seen any mutas, any orange mutas in the air yet. He produced a couple of Scourge, and he's going to try to camp over the lair to catch a muta popping out, but unfortunately the mutas are on there. But that was just a distraction because here comes the Zerglings trying to do a little bit more pressure, but Zero just not having enough Zerglings that time. One Zergling is going to get up and get a little bit of scouting, but I don't really know what there is to scout at this point in a Zerg versus Zerg. And finally it's going to get cornered, but wow, how did he keep that alive for so long? The one thing I want to say is it was very smart by Calm when he saw that Zergling attack coming in. First he pulled his 3 drones off the line and said, do I need these to help defend? Because drones, you don't want to fight with them, but they are effective if you are forced to. And then he decided no, and he just retreated them back to his main, the nice safe haven, instead of having them still trying to mine. It's kind of an obvious thing to talk about, but all the time we see players just still trying to mine in the middle of a battle, and it often does not work out very well for them. Okay, there's the mutas. That's like literally the first time we've seen mutas. And here comes Calm with some Zerglings, but those aren't going to do anything. Zero's produced so many Scourge already in this game. Calm's just got 2 or 3 pairs, and Zero's got like 18 Scourge flying around, it looks like.
Yeah, that is a shocking amount of Scourge, definitely. It does look like neither player actually has fully saturated their mains. Their naturals look like they're pretty dry as well. So in that first game where we saw both players get those pretty quick hatches, we saw a lot of extra drones coming in and some very good saturation, as much cheating of drones as you could. And this time it looks like both players were playing very, very conservative, playing very tight to the vest, and producing more Zerglings and less trying to sneak those drones in. And look at this, we got some mutas for Zero actually being kind of adventuresome. They cannot go out too much farther than they are right now, and a couple Scourge going in there to keep the mulas at home. They go too much farther, you don't want to leave a gap open in your defenses where your opponent can dart in there, pick off some drones, and get out too easily. And we do finally see the counter Scourge being produced by Calm, so he is countered with a whole swarm of his own. It looks like both players with a ton of aerial units, and here we go. We should have an engagement right now. Zero getting the first volley in, Scourge being brought in by both players, and Zero trying to micro as well as he can right now, and actually a bunch of Scourge actually landing for Calm. So Zero actually having some trouble here with his Muto micro, although at the end of that battle he did definitely pick it up hardcore in terms of picking up those last 6 or so Scourge, really turned it up, and a couple Zerglings actually for Calm sneaking in as well. Looks like they picked off a couple drones, so a little bit of advantage there for Calm once again. And here comes Calm once again, taking advantage everywhere where Zero is not, Calm is, and just trying to pick off as much as he can. And Zero actually countering by picking off a Mutalist as well. We'll see if that even a single Mutalist can come into advantage. But Calm playing very, very brainy right here, and as Zero's trying to get back on the offensive and try and get back on the front foot in this battle.
Oh, there's a huge battle coming in. A lot of Scourge landing. This is actually terrible for Com. Oh my god, a lot of Scourge landed that, but it looks like it's still pretty equal Muta numbers, although Zero definitely has a marked advantage. Only 2 Mutas left versus 3, so that's going to end up shaking down to 2 to 1, although not enough Mutas left to micro against those Scourge very effectively and do any damage. So while Zero did win that, he's not actually going to do any damage, but I was thinking about why is he producing so many Scourge? Is he hiding a third base anywhere? Because you can save up a really big cache of minerals doing that. 2 drones by Com sneaking into the main base. Are they going to get any kills? Very nice drone drill, but it looks like 2 drones, 3 drones going down. But Zerglings and Mutas cleaning up the rest. So that is pretty bad for Zero. But he's got a huge he's got to have a huge cache of minerals because he just produced so many Scourge for so long, only spending 25 minerals per larva when you're mining a lot more than that. So what I was expecting him to do was to sneak a third, maybe in the top right, but now that he lost some drones, he's still going to, even though his economy is a little bit lacking, he's still going to be able to support full production for a really long time now, so don't be fooled.
Yeah, and Zero's actually coming in here for a big counterattack. We saw Calm with a bunch of Zerglings, so we spent several larvae coming in there and actually picking off some drones. And he did get some damage done, but there is a small moment of weakness here where Zero will have more military larvae invested into his assault. And he is coming in here. It looks like he is going to go for that natural hatchery, and he might actually be able to pick it off. And Calm has to be careful, because if he goes to try and defend that hatchery, he might start losing drones in his main. So this is just a reverse situation where Zero now is doing the same thing to Calm, where he's just confusing his focus, making him be everywhere at once, and this hatchery is so close to going down, and Zero actually letting it live, splitting off some of his Zerglings into the main, looking to try and take down some drones. He hasn't taken any down yet. Calm with some fantastic micro, keeping all of his drones flat, keeps them all alive, but Zero with a few Zerglings coming back in, able to pick off that hatchery, and so this is getting very, very interesting. Calm has killed more drones, but on the other hand, Zero has killed that hatchery, which is huge. That is huge. A huge production advantage right now for Zero. So Calm actually is going to have a small window here where he can either try to take his hatchery again, which probably, I don't know if that's really going to work for him because it's going to take so long, but he's going to have to maybe try and get some counter damage done in here, and it looks like that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to try and end this game right here, right now, with everything that he's got, because he does not want to take that production disadvantage for too much longer.
And the final battle is coming in here, but it looks like Zero was able to actually macro up not just a pretty big Muta advantage, but a huge amount of Scourge once again, and Com just being forced to micro against Scourge for a really long time, and now he's finally going to engage. He's got no Scourge, and there's still 4 or 6 Scourge for Zero, and I think if Zero can just keep this battle going on longer, he'll just continue to rally out Mutas from both of his hatcheries and eventually take this game. Although it looks like Com does have the Muta advantage. I was wrong. Or no, I was... Wow, this is really confusing. I'm sorry about this. Oh no, there's only 2 Mutalists left. I thought Com had a lot more Mutalists that right down to 2 Mutalists, and he's only got 1 hatchery's worth of production. So this game is pretty much over unless he's got a bunch of Zerglings or a bunch of Mutas that we don't know about. An idea that he could do is maybe he could try to Scourge a bunch of Overlords and then cut Zero's production that way, because he can't produce because he has to make Overlords. But that's not going to happen. And actually landing a Scourge or 2, yeah, landing 2 Scourge, but still, it's just really doesn't matter at this point. I think that Zero has this because he's still got those 2 hatcheries and he's still got Mutas in the air. Although he has lost quite a number of drones this game, he's only got 6 drones on minerals, which is kind of comparable to what Com has going on right now. So could this game still be going on? Could this still be competitive? You've got to give Zero a big advantage.
Yeah, Zero is in a huge advantage, and he should win this just by bringing in Zerglings along with his Mutalist. And when we saw those Scourge above the hatchery for Zero, I just want to mention because it was cool, Zero actually canceled one of his larvae because it was going to be a Mutalist that was going to die to Scourge, so he canceled it so that way the Scourge didn't get a kill, which I thought was kind of cool. And a couple Scourge landing for Zero, and that might actually be the death blow. Losing a couple more Mutalists like that is just not going to work for Calm. He needed to just be right on his game and basically use every single larva to his advantage, and that is definitely going to hurt him big time, because now I think he's actually behind on the Muta count. At least before he was even or ahead, so even if he lost a battle here or there with the Zergling, he could still try and depend upon that Mutalisk advantage, but now he can't depend on that, so now he's going to be behind on maybe too many levels. He does have the second hatchery up and running again, So he might still be in this, but I really still think Zero is just in a huge advantage. He's just had so many more larvae to work with. You can see the drones at the natural expansion. There are more of them for Zero, and yeah, I have to give this to Zero. He just has to be in a better position. Just looking at it and counting the mutas and the overall production advantage that he's had for so long.
Yeah, after Zero took out the natural expansion, he actually built 2 more drones because he had taken a lot of drone harassment. Yeah, you can see Com doesn't even have enough drones to fully saturate his natural expansion's gas, whereas Zero has enough to be on gas and even have one on minerals. So that was a really clever thing. I know my opponent has not as much production as I do now, so I can still have a production advantage even if I spend just a couple of larvae on drones. So he was taking what's kind of a short-term advantage, because that hatchery is going to be rebuilt into a very long-term advantage, just having the superior economy, which in a Zerg versus Zerg is just everything. And I think Com's up 3 drones right now. He's got superior mutaforces, actually more Scourge in the air now, and a standing army of 2 Zerglings, where I think Com has 0. So this is not looking good at all for Com. He's going to do something. He's going to need to do something very sneaky. That is, get some Zerglings in somehow and snipe drones, or else this game's going to be over in a second.
Yeah, I really just see Zero charging in here pretty soon with a couple control groups. Maybe once he starts the second control. Actually, no, he's just going in with the one and just coming out with a big victory here. And here we go. We're actually going to have a little bit of a micro fight here. And Zero actually absorbing a couple of Scourge hits here, microing against the others, taking them down. So all the Scourge are down for Calm, except for I think there maybe is 1 or 2 left. So Zero's going to have a huge advantage now in this next phase of the battle, because he's just going to have more Scourge. And here we go. How is this going to end? Calm microing very well against the Scourge of Zero and actually taking down a lot of them, but there are still some left, and now the mutas are fighting over Calm's drones, which is not a good spot. He's trying to take the battle away from that position and trying to engage the mutas as well as he can, but he just doesn't have enough. You can just see that there are more mutas in the air for Zero, and now he's just going to go pick off drones. Bam! Bam, bam, it is good. Whoa, okay, or Zero can retreat. I feel like he has a mutalist advantage here, but I guess he wants to bring his extra Scourge in as well to really drive this home. I think he could have ended it already. You can just see the mutalist count for his Calm is just dwindling. It's down to 2 or 1 right now, and there it is. There's the last of them. Nothing left. Some Scourge are remaining. He could probably absorb all those and not even care. The game's still over, and he actually does absorb almost every single one, and it doesn't matter. GG from Calm. Zero getting a victory in what was a very back and forth, a very entertaining. The game was definitely swaying back and forth. A very good ZVZ game by both these guys.
Yeah, so with that, we are going on to a Game 5. This MSL has had so many games in it. We've seen... Did we see... I think we saw 1 2-0 in the round of 16 out of 8. And already we're seeing... I don't want to spoil Jaedong vs. Grape in case you haven't seen it. That's on my account. We're seeing this go to 5 games, so what a treat. We've had so many games this MSL. This is awesome.